Today's episode is the one you guys have been waiting for. I'm super excited about this and I'm sure you are too. It's the community redraw. So let's bring these illustrations to life. Frank to his friends, Red Reaper to the criminals of his hometown where he spends the nights wandering around searching for them. His superhero name is Red Reaper, a name given to him by the criminals who fear him. When Frank finds a criminal, his eyes turn red as well as his scythe turning red and they both glow. Then he attacks. Although he looks scary and somewhat demonic in appearance, Frank is a gentle soul and has never taken a life. He does, however, attack criminals as if he was going to finish them off, in the hopes that the fear will make them change their ways. This has worked to reform some of the criminals on occasion, however, not as many as Frank would like. Frank will incapacitate a criminal before taking them to the local police station. The police are used to Frank's appearance, and he has a couple of friends within the force who he will deliver criminals to. Most of the police force are used to the Reaper's looks, but there are times when rookies will tremble in fear at his appearance. Frank has a rather unique physique that helps him to capture the criminals with little fear of being injured. His body is almost impenetrable due to his unique skin. He has far more strength than his slender frame leads you to believe, and he also possesses a rather cool ability. He can travel short distances through shadows, allowing him to sneak up on his opponent. Of course, this does have a weakness. If there is no light, there is no shadow, causing Frank to be unable to use this power. One day, Frank had a criminal cornered and was about to attack when he was led into a trap. He was led into a room where the criminal had set up a gas to deal with Frank's unique body. The gas seemed to work at first, appearing to turn the skin of the Red Reaper a bluish colour. The criminal thought that the gas was working as Frank cried out in pain, dropping to the floor and letting go of his scythe. The criminal thought he had defeated the Red Reaper and turned off the gas. Frank remained motionless on the floor as the criminal approached, getting closer and closer until he was right next to our fallen hero. It was at that moment Frank's hand grabbed the leg of the criminal, lifting him up and holding him upside down in the air as he stood up, dangling him by his ankles. As he was standing up, Frank began to change his form, looking more and more scarier, with a long tongue that came out from his mouth and ran across his lips. The criminal screamed in fear, wondering what he just created. It seemed that the gas was based on a substance from a fallen meteor, and it had trace elements of symbiote cells within it. These cells bonded with Frank's DNA, causing him to gain a new venomized form. Meet Rose Hoffman, known to others by the superhero name Fawn. She has the ability to create weapons from gamma radiation. Her body can generate this form of radiation at will, and most of the time it is harmless to those around her. She is a rather chilled and intelligent hero who's able to keep calm in some of the most chaotic situations around. This makes it difficult for her opponent to make her angry, and above all else, Rose has a passion for helping to protect the people. This has made her one of the more accepted and loved mutants in the public eye, using her powers to protect people even at the cost of her own safety. Rose does, however, have a rather unique condition for a superhero. She is deaf, and although she does use hearing aids to help with this, there have at times been cases where the hearing aids have either been damaged or incapacitated, leaving our hero to use a chilled and smart demeanour to find solutions to this. One solution is being able to sense gamma energy that is around or near her, especially from the energy in the weapons she can make, often allowing her to maintain the form of the weapon even when she's not holding it. She lives on Earth 616, the same universe as the Avengers and Agents of Smash. This has led to some rather unique and strange increases to her powers when she's been in the nearby vicinity of the Hulk and other gamma-powered characters. It may be from her mutant powers, drawing power from the gamma-based energy around her, although this is not something she is trained or even knew as one of her powers. Well, that was until she had an encounter with one of the Agents of Smash who was infected by a symbiote. It was during this fight with a Venomized She-Hulk that Fawn discovered when she was hit by a gamma shockwave, or when She-Hulk got close. She felt a surge of energy within her body and her powers seemed to become stronger, being supercharged from the resonance with the gamma energy that was produced naturally within a Hulk's body. Unfortunately, for anyone in the region of the battle, this resonance meant that the two heroes weren't getting fatigued at all. This was going to be a long battle. Seeing that the battle was going to drag on, and unable to land a clean hit on Fawn, She-Hulk decided to try a different approach. As she swung for Fawn and deliberately made it so our hero would dodge the attack, at this point She-Hulk flung her arm and hit Fawn in the chest, sending her flying through the air. As the arm hit our young gamma-powered hero, part of the symbiote detached from She-Hulk and clung to her chest. It quickly began to spread over her, completely engulfing her before she hit the ground. As our hero stood up from underneath the rubble from the impact where she landed, she was covered in a pinkish-coloured version of the symbiote with glowing green gamma-infused symbols on it. She looked at She-Hulk with a smile and understood that the power she had now gained was able to help her protect the people she cared so deeply about. The chosen avatar of the mushroom god Capute can be recognised by the armour made of enchanted maple and the mother spore which he carries on his back, the source of his powers. This allowed him to have control over growing and creating mushrooms of various sizes with some unique and useful features. These mushrooms can cause explosions to create sticky surfaces, which he uses to entrap his opponents in place, giving him the upper hand in a battle. These mushrooms can even expand in an instant to create walls and barriers to protect himself and those around him from harm. Spiralis often used this ability to help break his fall. One of the rather unusual looking heroes, not to mention his rather unique skill set, he's proven himself time and time again as a great protector of the people, and although he normally deals with criminals that do not have powers, he has on occasion had to stop some villains who were able to counter his own abilities. It was on one such occasion that Spiralis ended up with a Clintar symbiote, increasing his power and helping to make up for some of his own weaknesses. As you might have guessed, his main weakness was fire, or anything that was a fire-based attack. However, if the fire was small enough, and if he was quick enough, Spiralis could use his mushrooms to explode and cover them in the sticky substance, killing off the oxygen and putting out the flames. This only works on smaller fires, and if he is hit, Spiralis will do everything he can to protect the mother spore. Anyway, Spiralis was doing a patrol when he heard a rumbling sound coming from the skies above. As he looked up, Spiralis noticed a meteor heading towards the area where he was. It shot by and crashed ahead of him. As he went to investigate the scene, he noticed something strange. There were more flames than he expected from the size of the crater. This was due to one of the criminals spotting the crashing meteor and coming over to see if there was anything good to steal or loot, while trying to see if anyone was hurt from the impact. Spiralis was suddenly attacked by a large flame coming from his side. If it wasn't for the fact that the mother spore and mushrooms on his back sensed the heat just in time, him dodging backwards, he would have been seriously injured. This left Spiralis in a bit of a difficult situation. He was now trapped next to the meteor in an enclosed space. He created a makeshift wall with his mushrooms, but that was only a temporary measure. It wouldn't be long until the flame attack would burn its way through. Spiralis was so focused on the situation that he failed to realise an oozing goop-like substance making its way over to him. He got ready to attack the criminal once the barrier he created was broken. Unfortunately, he was attacked from behind by the symbiote, which caused him to scream out a very loud cry. The symbiote had started to fuse with the mother spore, as well as Spiralis, and he could feel it happening. Within moments, he was transformed into a symbiote. He could feel that he was more heat resistant, however, the flames were still able to weaken him if they were in a large enough quantity. This is Chet. His hero name is Thermite, and he is a scrapper on planet M454887E, a moon that is used by other worlds to dump their trash for the last several generations. Due to this, many monsters have evolved or mutated from the radioactive and biochemical waste in order to survive in this deadly environment. Most of the creatures are carnivores that eat each other to survive. However, one species is at the top of the food chain, for as long as people can remember. It's a lizard-like creature that covers itself in junk and hides to ambush its prey. Most of the civilization live in massive vehicles that walk across the scraplands. Chet has made a life of being a scrapper for the colony known as the Soulless Walker. From a young age, he went on his first expedition, and by the time he was 14, he had made a helmet to help himself breathe in the toxic areas of the scraplands, as well as being able to scan for useful items in the scrap heaps. By the time he was 16, he made gauntlets that contained a deployable sword and shield. Chet never thought of himself as a hero, but when he was around 20, there was an uprising of robots within the scraplands. They went rogue, attacking colonies, one after another, to wipe out the only species on the planet that could stop them. Chet has spent many years since then saving the people of his colony and other colonies that they come across. He has dedicated his life to protecting people from this threat, a threat no one seems to know where it originated from. Some speculate it was perhaps a scrap robot that was dumped on the planet, but it was not deactivated properly, or it was just left thinking it wouldn't cause any harm being on this scrap planet. Others heard rumours that it was an experiment gone wrong from one of the other colonies that had been wiped out. In fact, that rumour was nearer to the truth. At the age of 20, Chet decided to use his inventing skills to create a robot that could go to the scraplands and build more robots. The idea was to make life easier for the colonies, having the robots go and gather materials and resources in the more dangerous areas. However, something went wrong, and the programming got corrupted, somehow causing it to rebel and create an army to wipe out the colonies instead. Chet has kept the secret close to his heart, and instead of letting people know, he's dedicated his life to undoing the damage that he has caused. While working on a weapon to stop the robots once and for all, Chet discovered a container with a massive energy output. It was some form of biological power source, but unlike anything that he had seen before. In his lab, he attached the container to power the new weapon, but in his haste, he made a mistake, causing the power source to blow up, covering him in the biological contents of the container. Chet passed out, but when he came to, he was shocked to see his form had changed to a more organic creature, and he felt stronger than before. With his new powers, Chet set off to finally put a stop to the robot army causing havoc on M454887E. Our next hero goes by the name Chain, and he has a rather unusual superpower. He can control chains. We're not sure if this is a super specific form of telekinesis, or it's a form of magnetism that works with an element that's common in all chains. However, this is an ability that has become useful in his time as a hero. Chained does have a rule when dealing with criminals, which has caused some controversy with the public. Chained refuses to deal with villains and criminals who have superpowers. He once tried to stop a criminal with superpowers, but he was unable to make a difference. This led him to decide that he should only stop those who don't have powers, to clean up the lower end of the spectrum that is often left out by the more largely known heroes. He believed this was how he could make a difference to the world, and a difference he had made. Most of the small-time crime in the area he patrols have been reduced to record lows. This was something that the public loved, even though he had a rather unusual appearance, with a chain around his body and across his face. Chained carried a bag full of, chains, allowing him to use his ability to the fullest when dealing with his foes. However, it was something deep within his heart that Chained wished he had more power to stop some of the stronger supervillains. Don't get him wrong, Chained was very happy and content in the fact that he had protected the neighbourhood and made it safe for everybody, and he was happy with the difference he was making. But he always had a burning desire to change what had happened in the past. One night, there was a break-in at a local research lab. A bunch of wannabe criminals had broken in looking to steal some of the research to sell later on, to make a quick buck. They hadn't counted on the fact that Chained would be patrolling that area. As they were leaving the lab, one of the criminals spotted our hero, and they started to run. Chained sent some chains flying, tying up the criminal who was straggling behind. As he began to chase the others who were carrying some containers of a weird liquid-like substance, they were pretty fast on their feet. Of course, Chain wasn't going to let this stop him, and he flung his weapon at the streetlight and began swinging from post to post in his own variation of web slinging. It wasn't long before he caught up with the criminals and launched some more chains at them, causing them to fall to the ground. As Chain landed on one of the criminals nearest to him, the container the guy had broke, and the liquid substance shot out from underneath the now unconscious criminal, going straight for Chained. Chained used his powers to spin his chain weapon around in front of him to try and form a barrier, but this turned out to be far worse a choice than dodging the actual substance in the first place. The liquid split up as it hit the chain, and multiple bits of it flew at him, covering him in spots all over his body. It then started to cover him from head to toe, and he let out a loud cry that sent chills down the bones of the criminal, who was still conscious. While the liquid was bonding with Chain's DNA, his powers weakened for a brief moment, but only long enough for the criminal to escape from the chains he was in and to run away. Chain's cry turned from a scream to a slightly menacing laugh, as he was now in a new venomized form. Riane Rosa. Don't let the pretty name fool you. She's a hot-headed 20-year-old with a headbutt that could put a barbarian into a coma. The same can be said about her brothers and sisters, quite the rough and tumble household, living in a small town out in the sticks. A town dependent on its grain field and ore mines in order to survive, where the people are content. However, they are also fearful of the Dark Grove, a region inhabited by demons and other dark, mysterious creatures. One day, everything changed with the arrival of the Golden Brigade, a royal task force dispatched to counteract the threat of the Dark Grove. Not long after arriving, the Golden Brigade began their battle with the creatures. They successfully burned down half of their demonic homes. The townspeople revered the Golden Brigade as heroes, but as the weeks went by, they were acting less like heroes and more like a mafia, demanding protection money, enforcing new restrictions on the people. They'd even gone so far as taking the ore mines and hoarding half of the grain from the fields. Where the people were upset, they did not protest, for they preferred to be bullied rather than plagued by demons. Riane was not convinced. She grew ever suspicious and took it upon herself to investigate the Dark Grove. A skilled huntress with the senses of a bloodhound and can wield a rope dart with lethal pinpoint accuracy. Yet, even though she was crazy venturing into the Dark Grove, what she found there was far from what she was expecting. The Grove was not inhabited by demons and dark creatures, but by fairies and gnomes and trolls, all peaceful creatures. The Golden Brigade began inciting fear and propaganda in order to seize control over the region. Riane was outraged. She swore that she would do all she could to drive out those evil soldiers, even at the cost of her own life. She spent the next month training in secret. The trolls crafted armour made from the hide of a red wyvern. The gnomes forged her chain darts that extended 12 metres and could pierce steel on impact. The fairies bestowed magic upon her, granting her the strength of 10 men. She was then able to rally the townspeople and the Grove folk to finally work together and drive the Golden Brigade out of their land. Riane earned the name of the Red Rebel. Not long after her victory, she was approached by a shady merchant, rewarding Red Rebel with a jar of goop he called a symbiote. Red Rebel accepted the jar out of curiosity, and the merchant left with a sinister smile on his face while his back was turned. Our hero, a little curious about what the substance was, headed back to where her secret training ground was and decided to open the jar and inspect it. As soon as she opened the jar, Riane was taken by surprise. The goop flung towards her and latched onto her finger. She tried to shake it off, but it was no use. The goop started to crawl further and further up her arm. As Riane lifted her arm and tried to shake it off, a couple of tendrils shot out from the goop, hitting her in the chest. Before she knew it, she was cocooned in a shell of symbiote goop that hardened around her. Several hours passed, and the purplish colour of the night filled the sky. The cocoon started to crack. All of a sudden, the cocoon burst open, and where our hero Riane had been standing, there was now a completely new form to her that looked almost demonic. This was a symbiote form. The colour of the goop had changed to red, matching the colour of her armour from before. Filled with a renewed surge of energy, she set out to hunt down and stop the Golden Brigade from causing any more harm to the innocents across the land. There we have it, our first community redraw, and I'm really super excited about how all of these came out. I had a lot of fun redrawing your character submissions, and I have to tell you, it was extremely difficult to choose. I mean, absolutely insanely difficult to choose. It's probably the hardest thing I've done on the channel in a very long time. All of the submissions were absolutely amazing. I have to say thank you to Galhound19, Hannafana, Legomatic, That the Shark, Uniform Banjo 740, and GopherDude88. Your submissions are the ones that won this time, so I'll be contacting you shortly and sending you the final artwork in a high-res JPEG version. If you want to have your art featured in the next community redraw, create a monster character or creature. I need one headshot and one body pose. And if the monster's got any powers or abilities or features that make it unique, let me know in a simple paragraph or sentence, because I'm going to put a little twist on the drawing next time. But I won't spoil that. That'll be something you'll find out in the next redraw. And that's all we've got time for today. I hope you enjoyed our first community redraw. I certainly did. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll catch you next time.